Salam
So,
alaikum, everyone.
walaikum salam. So I didn't give away too much. I've just introduced
Okay.
myself, Atiya Lokat, the founder and CEO of Zubaydah Welcome. And we teach Quran to refugee and asylum seeker children. That's what we do. And we do that for all the displaced refugee children across the UK. Sandina and I, Sandy for short, met in Qatar last year at the GMW Summit, Alhumdolillah, and I'm so grateful for that. And I was so fascinated by your story, Sandina. I'm just going to hand it over to you so you can tell us about yourself. You are this amazing, amazing artist, okay? I don't want to get this wrong. So it was 2016 is when you started your journey as an artist,
Yes.
yeah? And you do
Yes.
something called miniature geometry.
Yeah.
I've seen some of your work. Phenomenal. Subhanallah, it's amazing.
Thank you.
You're also the co-founder of the Global Center of Islamic Art.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And you are an educator and surface pattern designer, and you mentor and you empower future artists and help them set up their own business.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah. Right. So tell us a little bit about your journey as a refugee who also had a difficult journey traveling from Bosnia to Italy. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Sandina, and I'm originally from Bosnia. As most of you know, Bosnia was in war in 1992. And I was 1 year old when that happened. And so when that happened, of course, my parents tried to escape. So it took us 4 years to arrive in Italy. So we moved to Croatia, and then in Slovenia, and then finally in Italy. And we were also supposed to go to Canada. But when the documents arrived, later, my mom was like, I don't want to start all over again. Let's just settle down here. And so we remained in Italy. So it's 20, I don't know how many years, 95, 24. So it's almost 30 years that I've been living here.
Wow. SubhanAllah. So you're in Italy. What part of Italy are you in?
I'm in the
Without giving away your address.
in the north. I'm really close to Milan.
Oh, okay, lovely. So tell me, like, oh gosh, I have so many things I want to ask you. What was it like? I mean, you're in a very primarily Christian country, right? What was it like growing up in a Christian environment, as a 1-year-old baby coming to Italy? What was that like?
Well, I was 4 year old when I arrived, and when you're that young, you don't really, think about religion or anything at all. I do know that I knew that there was something different. For example, we didn't celebrate Christmas, or when, we're at school when we had religious, because they teach religion 1 hour per week. So during that time, I was going out of the class, doing something else. So it was different. We didn't eat pork, of course, so I felt kind of different, but it wasn't that much of a difficulty back then, because I was really, really young.
Right.
And then growing up, you start to see really the difference when you start questioning your parents, why are we not doing this? Or, and I really see from my parents' side of view, for example, a lack of religious teachings. I don't know how to say this, but when you are in war, and especially I am sorry for saying this, but we as Bosnians, we really like easy Muslims. Like we're not really indoctrinated, and living so close to the West, sometimes we just lose our connection to our religion. And so the religion, in fact, in my family was not really present when I was a kid. It is now. Growing up, my parents changed. They come closer to the religion. Myself come closer to the religion. But back then, it was not that present.
Right.
And indeed, one of the things that my mom says, and subhanAllah, this is, in the tragedy, you can see the beautiful part of it. She says, if it was not for the war, we would forget that we were Muslims, because we were so close to other religions and so merged with
Yeah.
them that we almost lost our connection to it.
Yeah. It was a test that brought you closer to your
Exactly.
deen, subhanAllah. Yeah. Did you ever feel lost growing up? Did you ever feel like you didn't? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Raise your hand if you didn't feel lost when
What was
we
that
were
like for you, though?
teenagers.
Maybe what does that look like?
Well, it looked like as a teenager, you do a lot of stuff, especially with your friends. You try stuff. And then when I grew older, I was not proud of myself at all. And indeed, I felt like I was unlovable and that God will never forgive me. That how I felt. And I really felt lost at that point of my life. And then he showed me the way and he taught me what to do and that I am indeed lovable and worthy of forgiveness.
Yeah.
So that was really beautiful.
So if you, as a parent, if you were the parent in that scenario, as a refugee raising children in Italy, would you have done things differently from your own parents?
Well, yes and no, in the sense that my parents were in survival mode, so I don't blame them for whatever they did. At the same time, it's so easy for us today to judge because we have Google, we can learn, we can grow.
Yeah.
There are many things that as parents that we can learn through Google that our parents didn't have
No.
access to. So they just did what they knew.
Mm.
And they did the
Yeah.
best, their best. So I don't blame them. Of course, I would do things differently, but
Mm.
because I have access to knowledge and I have access to many information that they didn't
Yeah.
have, just because of that, not
Yeah.
because I am smarter or anything else.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the reasons why I am so moved and so I feel so compelled to do what I do, or we do what we do, is because we can see when we go into these bridging hotels where the asylum seekers live, where the displaced children and families live, we see how much is being thrown at them. They
Yes.
have to navigate through the social services, education system, the NHS. Some of them are like doctors and they're high court judges, and now they have come to this country and they have no job and they don't know how to rebuild their lives, right? So what are the things that I try and do personally? For me, it's like a mission to relieve them of that burden because I
Mm,
can see that they're struggling, right? So like that, you at least you are able to empathize that actually your parents did the best they could within their means. And likewise, I see that these parents that come here with children, they're trying to do the best for their children within their means.
yes.
When they had to make that difficult choice to leave, to flee, I don't think they knew what they were going to be, where they were going to end up or what the journey was going to. We don't all have that ability to know what's going to happen in the future,
Yeah.
but you just don't think you flee. It's to flee to safety is what you're thinking, right? Like
Yes.
that's literally what they're doing, is to find refuge, right? And when they get to the place of refuge, it's not always what they thought it was going to be, right? And they are getting support, but they might be getting it from the Christian group or the synagogues, or they don't, and maybe they thought they were going to get more support from the Muslim community,
Mm.
but they didn't get it. So I mean, that brings me to the next question: were there a lot?
I lost you. Can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you say it again?
Somebody's tried to call in. I don't know
Oh,
how that works. I don't know how that
okay.
was. So we've lost you for 5 seconds as well. Right. So well, I forgot. I've lost my train of thought. So Muslim organizations where you were, were there a lot of Muslim organizations or support groups that were there to like come and sort of rescue you, to help you kind of integrate? Were they there?
Oh, who knows? I don't really remember. I remember my parents trying to do it on their own, with their own capabilities and energies and money. And I do remember they were asking help to another woman. She was from Croatia, I think, or something like that. And she was helping them with the documents because they didn't know how to speak Italian at all. But I don't remember And yeah, so sorry. I also have to say that we had some family here. So my mom had some cousins here. So this is also why we came here and not anywhere else.
Alhamdulillah.
So that family kind of helped us instead of relying on organizations.
Yeah, and you were
Um,
one of the lucky ones. Alhamdulillah,
yes,
right? Like,
Alhamdulillah.
because there are people who
Alhamdulillah.
wouldn't have anyone. Yeah.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I do remember there is one organization here that helps people without a house
Mhm.
or, without anything. I do remember they gave us some furniture for the
Yeah.
house.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I don't remember any other organization helping us, nor my parents asking for
Yeah.
help, to be honest. So they tried to really made it on with
On their
their own.
own. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like a lot of the people that come here, they don't want to ask for help.
Mhm.
They don't want to be in need. Who does? Who
Yeah.
wants to be at the mercy of somebody else? Nobody does, right? But they were put in this predicament, in this situation where now they are at the mercy of others. But it's far worse when they're at the mercy of other faith groups who, it's great that they're very kind to them, right? But they feel quite sort of compelled, or they feel that they have to compromise their own values and their own beliefs to fit in, to go to
Mhm.
the church meetings, and so this is where, I mean, one of the things I did, it's funny, it's interesting you're talking about housing, is I actually started this in 2016 when I brought over the Syrian families from the borders of Syria through a sponsorship scheme as a landlady. So I brought over 6 families, Alhamdulillah. And when they came over, I noticed that actually there was so much support from everywhere else, the housing and then delivering furniture, even myself, like my own, support in my network were helping me find furniture, find the things that these families needed to deliver it to them. But actually, the thing that they were really needing and that was lacking was that support system for them, for their children to retain their Muslim identity, for them to have their spiritual needs, to have access to that, for them to know where the nearest halal shop is, or where the closest masjid is, or how to get there for Friday prayers. What do we do in Ramadan? Where will I access this and that and the other? And I thought, so I started giving them that sort of support. And I thought, you know what?
Mhm.
I have a different purpose here. I think I really need to be shifting to this. And
I
that's how it
see.
all started. And I started offering to pay for the children's Islamic education. The first one, a four-year-old tenant of mine, that's how it started, Alhamdulillah. And it grew to 50. And now, Alhamdulillah, we're doing the same for over 400 children this year
Mashallah.
in the UK. Yeah, and we've just scraped the surface here, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, but that's a load off of a parent's shoulder, like knowing that, you know what, now that's been sorted. At least I know my child will go and learn about her faith or his faith and retain that, inshallah. We'll be able to now, be in a community that's familiar to us, that's similar to us, that we have some things in common, and at the same time, I can focus on rebuilding my life, right?
Mhm.
And it's that coming and going, also being in that community, in that sort of a circle of, support system, having a sense of community. So a lot of the families that we're supporting, the children, they will come pick up the child, drop off the child, and then they'll talk on the playground with other parents, right?
Mhm.
And they'll get the information that they need, like, or they'll get some, they'll exchange numbers, they'll get some volunteer experience, or employment, opportunities, or if they have guidance, like career guidance for the older children. There's older children, that need to know how to get a certain degree, for example, right?
Yeah.
So that sort of thing, there's all that kind of conversation. And the other thing we're doing, and Alhamdulillah, I think you mentioned that as well, is just signposting these children to organizations. So when your family came, you were saying that there really wasn't anything, right? When your parents came,
Yeah.
there really wasn't anything. And Alhamdulillah, they had some family there. But some of the people that we support have nobody here, right? So one of the things we do on our website is we signpost them to other organizations who are offering free services and resources, right? Like parenting classes, or sponsorship programs for children, and all kinds of things that they may not even know about, right? So yeah, Alhamdulillah, I mean, I just was
And this
curious
is,
what it was like then and what it is like now.
yeah. And this is also very good what you're saying, because I do remember, for example, growing up, it was only my family. Like I was not used to be in community or be with someone else, right? Or accept the help for someone else. And I remember when I went to visit my Fadila, who is the co-founder of the Global Center of Islamic Art. I went to visit her in Manchester a couple of years ago, and I remember she said, "I moved here because there is a greater sense of community here." And I remember I thought, like, I would never think of moving because of a sense of community. That was
Yeah.
strange for me, right? Someone moved to another city because of the sense of community that was lacking in London, for example.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, what's that?
Yeah. We're all human beings. We're not meant to be sort of on our
Yeah,
own. We need that sense
but
of belonging. Yeah.
that's to say that as you know, in my family, we're so used to do it
Yeah.
on our on with you know on our own with our own energies and our own help that we were not used. I'm not used to community, a sense of community, and that was strange for me. Okay, you moved for the community.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things I loved about GMW Summit where we met in Qatar was how it made me feel like this world is not that big. Like we
Mhm.
can literally crunch it in this small space and meet amazing people from all over the world in just this one space. You know,
Yeah.
Alhumdolillah, it was beautiful. And that's where I met you and so many other people. Right. So what was my next question? I was going to ask you, if you could turn back the clock right now, right?
Mhm.
What would like what could have been done differently for your family by the community?
Mm. By the community. Oh, this is a very good question. To be honest, if I think about it, and if I think of also what you're saying, what you do as Zubeda Welcome, we kind of had food. My parents just went to work and work a lot to have the food and to grow me and my sister and to have a house and to pay the bills. So from my own perspective, I'm not saying that this is for like the same for everyone, but from my perspective, we were kind of covered from that basic needs, eating, drinking, and having a shelter. But for example, what you do as Zubeda Welcome, you give the sense of spirituality and you cover that part that not people don't usually think about. That definitely would have changed a lot of stuff. And I think also would have healed a lot of trauma beforehand, like when I was younger, not when I was grown up.
Yeah.
So yeah,
SubhanAllah,
definitely.
SubhanAllah. So you hit the nail. I mean, that is really Zubaida, welcome. We believe that actually the faith of a person is a survival tool, right? Our faith teaches us, so much about healing ourselves through the verses of the Quran, right? It's all in there, right? Who is the healer? Who is the provider, the sustainer? There is something greater than us, right? All of those beliefs is what gives us hope and, keeps us going, right? We see what's happening right now in Gaza, around the world. It's just horrific to see that's happening. But if you look at, I mean, imagine there aren't enough therapists in the world that are going to fix,
Yeah.
The trauma and everything that's probably going through and has gone through, right? But look at them. They're smiling and they're so strong in their faith.
Yeah.
They're so strong in their faith. They have lost everything, but they are still remembering to do their salah. They still do their Friday prayers. They still do you see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So and I knew that on a personal level, it was my faith that actually, kept me going, because that's when all of this started. I went through something myself on a personal level that was very, very challenging. And if it wasn't for my faith, I don't know how I would have gone past that stage, right?
Mm.
Subhanallah, it actually brought me closer. And as you said, the war brought you all closer to your faith,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so, it's very interesting how, the most ugliest things in the world, which we're looking at, we're thinking, gosh, but it's a blessing. And that's what
Mhm.
that is what's different about our faith, is that it teaches us that's a blessing,
Yeah.
right? And so when you're going through your hardships, when you're homeless, when you're foodless, when you're, you know, when you have nothing, in the end, you can still have that sense of peace, knowing that actually somebody else is in control here. You know, somebody else is in control. Let me ask him,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, so subhanallah, it's beautiful. Right. What you've been through, like surely that got to shape the way your attitudes are towards refugees now. Like in Italy, there must be a lot of refugees coming through as well, you know? Yeah. So how has that shaped your outlook on refugees and what you do now for refugees? I mean, are you involved?
Th- this is very interesting because um, how I see myself, like when I see someone suffering, I do feel like bad for them, and I feel like I want to support them and all the stuff. And I remember my husband saying, you know, not everyone is like you know, not everyone thinks about how to support people and how to donate and how. And I was like, no, like I was like, this is something that everyone do, you know, if you're not thinking about others, what are you doing at all?
Yeah.
It was like, no, it's not like that. Like, no, everyone is like that. You know, some people are just in their own stuff. They not think about the others. And that was like kind of reality check for me because I thought that that's common sense. That's what everyone do. But yeah, as you said, we do have a lot of refugees, especially from Africa. Some Syrians as well, but maybe less. But I also have to consider my other country, Bosnia, because I'm from there, and there we have a lot of people because you know
Have you
we're
gone back?
at the
Gone back?
door. We're at the door of the Middle East, so you know when they're flying and they're coming, they come from that point of view, and you can really see how many there are and how they're stuck because they would love to go to Europe, but they can't because we're like Bosnia
Have
is
you
not
been
in
back there?
Europe.
Has your family been back to Bosnia? And
Oh yeah, we go every year,
yeah,
at least twice a year. Yeah, for
yeah,
holidays.
yeah,
We have all families there, so we do go, and it's also like 8 hour car
yeah.
ride, so it's not
Oh wow, yeah,
it's not far.
yeah.
So yeah, we go there, and you can really see the difference, you know, between back and now. And subhanallah, you can really see how difficult it is for them. Like I was almost born during war and we fled, but we had a lot more support than they did. I guess it comes from the fact that now there are a lot of people, a lot of
Mm,
refugees
mm,
compared to, you know, Bosnians in
yeah,
1992. So that might overwhelm the system. It might be also the sense of Islamophobia or, I don't know, racism that is growing up in the West. It can be that. It can also be the fact that I'm
mm,
white. So, you know, a Muslim white, I think it's more welcome than a
mm,
black
yeah,
Muslim black.
yeah.
So there are a lot of things that
Discrimination.
can
Yeah.
be, yeah, but that's where you can see really the difference. I
Mm,
mean, I was in war, but I had a lot more help and support than people nowadays.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's nice that you can come out of a situation like that and say, Alhamdulillah, I had it good, you know.
Yeah,
Not a lot of people would say that. Now, one of the things you said to me, like, you know, that sometimes for you, this is like just so obvious, like you can't imagine not reaching out or not helping people. But it was very similar for me. Like I felt like I was in a parallel world to others, like a parallel universe where in my head, like when I started this 2016 teaching faith through refugees, I just thought everybody's doing this.
mhm,
Surely everyone's doing this. Everyone who's Muslim is supporting refugees and knows that this is happening, that they're not able to like teach the children and pass on this legacy. Surely everyone's doing this. But it was only very recently, I would say about 2.5 years ago, when I started going to charity events, Muslim charity events, and I realized there is no other charity like ours. There's
mhm.
nobody doing, which is just teaching on the Quran education of refugees, displaced children. And I was shocked. Like, I think maybe I'm a bit naive, but to me, it was like I was in a pair. I was seeing something that other people obviously hadn't seen at the
Yeah,
time, right? Subhanallah. And, but that's Allah. That's Allah. And I feel
You
so
too.
blessed
Yeah.
that He gave me those vision, those spectacles, you know, to be able to see that somebody else hasn't. And I'm doing this now, and I feel so blessed every single day. Now we're nearly coming to the end of our time, but I wanted to ask you one question. Imagine if you could speak to the younger version of yourself,
Mm.
or better yet, like somebody, as young children right now, displaced children, you know, what would you like to tell them if you could speak to them right now? Like, what message would you like to give them?
Yeah, this is a very good. You know, back maybe 2, 3 years ago, seeing all the things that are happening in the world, I felt like I don't want to have kids on this world. You know, everything is so messed up, and why should I give birth on this earth? And my husband said something that really stuck with me, and this is also the message that I want to say to everyone. He said, you know, you were born during war, right? And you are here now, you have a beautiful life, you have shelter, you travel the world, you do everything that you love, you are an artist. So you never know where you will end up. You know, even if the worst situation, you know,
Yeah.
if I was my parents, I would never give birth to myself. But they did it, and subhanallah, you never know where you're gonna
I know.
be. So everything changes. Everything changes. And also another thing that one of my friends says, you never know, your child might be the one that will change the world. You know, so that
Yeah.
you know, everyone is suffering, but it will change. You
Yeah,
know, it will
subhanallah,
change.
subhanallah. And it's funny, I said something very similar to my children yesterday, that, you know what, you know, when you're worrying about the future, like, you know, I want, like, you know, now my eldest is thinking about careers, and, oh, you know, I hope I can, achieve what I need to achieve. And like, do you know what? Stop, just tie your camel, right? Just do the best you
Mhm.
can, effort, and leave the rest to Allah. Because if I knew what I knew back then, what I know now, where my life is, right, at my age, I wouldn't wasted all those years worrying, you know, about who I'm gonna marry, where I'm gonna live, what my career is gonna be like, am I gonna achieve this? I wouldn't have worried about any of this, because Alhamdulillah, where I am now, I'm so content, I'm so happy that, you know what, I was worrying about all those things, and actually where I am is nothing like what I would have imagined I wanted to be. Like, it didn't
Yeah,
even exist in my mind, do you know? It didn't even exist. I couldn't even ask for it, because, and this is
exactly.
one of the things I do with my dua. I've actually changed my duaing, right? How I do my duas is I never ask Allah for a specific thing. Now I always say to my children as well, ask Allah to fill that void, whatever the void is in your life, in your heart, with whatever He thinks is best for
Yeah.
you. It could
Yes.
be a marriage, it could be a career, it could be what, because the thing is, you might ask for all of those things and get all those things and still not be content,
Yes.
right? So it's
Exactly.
like giving that sense of contentment and peace, no matter where you are, what you're doing, what the career is, who you're married to. That is what you need ultimately, because He is the owner of your contentment, alhamdulillah,
Yeah.
right? So
Alhamdulillah.
speaking of contentment, there's a lot of contentment coming up in the next a couple of weeks. I think there's Islamic Art Week, and so I wanted to sort of you to tell us a little bit of Islamic Art Week. What are you doing?
Yes, thank you for asking about that. As you said before when you introduced me, I have co-founded the Global Center of Islamic Art, and our mission is really to make Islamic art accessible to everyone around the world. And I know that a lot of, to many of us, especially as Muslims, we think about art as something elite that you do, you know, when you
Yeah.
have money or when you have time, which never happens. But really, as Muslims, Islamic art is a way to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and really to get our faith deeper. My faith got definitely deeper when I started practicing. There is a lot of symbolism and meaning and spirituality behind Islamic art.
Yeah.
So that said, we decided to give a sneak peek to anyone who wants to join us from the 16th of November until the 22nd of November. We have created the Islamic Art Week, and it's the first Islamic Art Week online.
Amazing.
So it's the first ever event
So it's
of this
online. It's
kind.
online. And how
Online,
can
so
they join?
anyone can join.
How can people join if they wanted to join?
They just have to go to www.islamicartweek.com, and the ticket is free, so they can join at any time during the week. If they also, there's something interesting they want to watch, but they cannot be there, they can also buy the replay bundle.
Amazing.
And have access, a lifetime access to the whole week.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm really
definitely
looking
you're
forward to it. I
welcome as
might be
well.
joining some of them. And in fact, you know what? Maybe perhaps next year we can start thinking about this, you know, because we have these empowerment programs that we have launched this year for our refugee Quran students. So they're doing Juz Ummah competitions. Some of them are now starting to be, you know, to do hifz, memorizing the Quran. And we have some of them who will be coached by Power Voice Academy, Khalila Lister, to be public speakers and tell their stories of hardship and how they've overcome through faith. And we're also having some of them, you know, we're polishing them, some of them into being published writers, Alhumdulillah. You know, and they're going to be writing about their stories with Little Hiba publishing company. And so those are all, we're trying to unlock the potential in some of these children. So we haven't actually tapped on their artistic abilities yet. So that's something perhaps we can talk about offline, inshallah. And who knows what next year, you know, we'll have some artists do some things during Islamic Art Week. Some of our artists, inshallah. And so this is sort of coming to the end of our interview, which I've really enjoyed, by the way. Thank you so much for joining us. But is there anything that you would like to, you know, some last words for our audience?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for having me, for giving me the opportunity to share my story. Not many people know about this, where I come from.
Now they do.
Now they do, definitely. But definitely, you know, what you are doing as Zubaida, welcome. I was so impressed when I met you at the GMW last year, what you're doing, your mission, which I really think is crucial. You're giving confidence to those children that they're not alone, they can do stuff. And one thing that I shared with you before, but I really want to share with who's listening to this as well, is imagine where we would be as human beings is if everyone in the world had access to education. So, you know, we were, you know, on another planet, maybe.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And Islamic education is the most fundamental of education, you know, to know where does our intelligence and our skills and our abilities and our talents and everything come from, you know, just to never forget that. And of course, if you want to visit, you know more about what we do, you can go to zubaidawelcome.org, find out about all the projects that we're running for our Quran students as well, inshallah. And I hope that I get to see you again in Qatar, inshallah. And that's it for now. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Salam alaikum.
Okay, so now how am I going to do